Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. We're excited to have you on. Thank you for watching. Hello, Brandon.
Hello. How are you doing, Kathy?
I'm good. So just so everybody knows, this is our interview show. So we do bring on people of the more spiritual element. Okay, so these are going to be investigators. These could be psychics. They could be readers. We had a hypnotist on. Today we actually have a great guest on, Dan Hammond. I've had him on another show that I do, and he's so interesting to talk to. So I'm so excited to bring him on. I just wanted to let everybody know also that, so this is not a reading show. Okay, so that is going to be on Wednesdays at 6:00 p.m. So I know a lot of people will come on to this show thinking that we're doing readings this day. And it really does depend on the guests that we have and if they're even willing to be doing readings for that day. So also, if you guys if you do want a personal reading though, you can contact me at oracle-intuitions.com or through my Facebook page at Oracle Intuitions or my Instagram page. Also, I do have a daily message of the day from Spirit. So make sure you guys check that out on the channel, as well as the weekly readings that I do every week. So make sure you click subscribe. Hello, everybody that's watching. Thank you so much for being here. Brandon, where can people reach you?
thedreamteacher.com. You can set up appointments there, learn more about me, download some awesome hypnotherapy. I still got some in the works right now, amidst all the 100 other things I have on my plate. So be patient, but you can find those on the downloads tab. Or if you want to set up an appointment, click the appointments tab. You can get a free consultation or set up at least an hour to an hour and a half of a session. thedreamteacher.com.
Perfect. So how was your week?
It's been a very interesting week. A lot of relief and release and lots of beautiful little symbols and signs I was sharing with you. All the critters and creatures that have stumbled upon my path. And those little moments, I live for those. They help you to, if you're paying attention, if you do feel yourself being connected with the world around you based on an internal connection that you have, you'll see these little moments. I mean, Kathy, you talk about all the time about how there are random little animal occurrences that are just so strange and weird, and you can feel some kind of connection with spirit or source or universe or something. And really, it's just exemplifying the internal connections that you have in this like external way by way of animals or critters. And I had a couple of those. One of them I'll share with y'all was I was walking, and all of a sudden I felt like there was something under my foot, and I picked up my foot and I didn't see anything, and I put my foot back down and I felt it again, and I turned my foot over, and there is this big dung beetle, or they call them the scarab beetles, under my foot. And the beautiful thing about this is I've always wanted to see one, is that they follow the stars when they're navigating, when they're like rolling their little ball and moving around. They follow the stars, so they're seen as like these galactic line makers, galactic communicator. They're in line with the galaxy. They're in line with the Milky Way. And
I think you paused for a second.
Are we back?
Yeah.
For it to be under my foot like that made me feel like I was directly stepping in line with like universal paths and patterns. And it was the coolest experience. It was the coolest thing. And I think it was big too. I mean, he was really, really big. It was a little bit startling, but a beautiful message. And I think those happen all across the spectrum when we're in any sort of spiritual focus or paranormal study or things like that. Like, I wonder how many times a ghost or entity or spirit has tried to send a sign to people. Now, I don't have experience like that. I've never been around somewhere that's like haunted or actively known it or seen anything like that. So that's why I rely on your experience here to figure out, how those come about.
And this is why I rely on, I guess it's not coworkers. I guess, what is it? Like
It's colleagues, right?
Colleagues in the spiritual realm, right? Like colleagues that are in the paranormal experience as well, or do paranormal investigation as well. So we're going to bring on Dan now and say hello. Hello, Mr. Dan. How are you?
Hello again.
It is good to see you.
Good to see you as well, and nice to meet Brandon all the way.
Yes, you too,
all the way from the Lone Star State.
Yep.
Very cool. Very cool. I've always wanted to go to Texas, but haven't made it there yet. I've been to Arizona, I've been to Nevada, and like every other Canadian, I've been to Florida a million times. And,
I haven't been to Florida yet. I was actually supposed to go in 2020.
I think Canada should just buy Florida. You guys can buy Greenland like you've been talking about. and we'll buy Florida, because I think that's the only reason why you have so many hockey teams down there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like come on now. Two
I
hockey teams in Florida.
We should take Hawaii off of the United States hands as well.
That's right. It's all those snowbirds that go down there that support the hocky teams, right?
That's right.
It's true. I lived there for 4 years. That is very true.
That is very true.
Yeah.
I love Florida.
I would love to go. Love to go.
I'm so surprised you haven't.
One of the reasons I wanted to go is because of all, like Brandon was talking about, all of the interesting creatures. So I am a reptile fan, and there are so many reptile exhibits or wildlife, centers in Florida. And I've been dying to go down there because, even some of my favorite YouTubers are all down there. They all have these sanctuaries, and I've been really wanting to go and, pet a crocodile or something like that. I don't And nobody here in Canada will let me pet a crocodile because they won't let us have one. So I don't know.
No. We can pet black bears and grizzly bears, and
yeah, that's pretty cool.
The odd cougar.
Yeah, the odd cougar, but no crocodiles up here. One of the coolest memories I have of being in Florida, and you're talking about animals, and Brandon, you were talking about animal signs and stepping on that poor beetle's head, and I
didn't crush them, thankfully.
No, there's a place in Florida, and I wish I could remember the name of it because I was a kid. I was like 10 or 11. It was like Monkey World or something. It's in the Everglades, and you sit on these like bleachers, like high school bleachers, and the guy, he's standing at a podium, and you're surrounded by these beautiful, the Everglade trees, and like with the vines and everything hanging. You don't see anything. It's like, where's all the monkeys? and this guy like whistles and brings out this big bag of peanuts or whatever. And I swear, it was almost like these monkeys materialized out of nowhere. And thousands of them, these tiny little brown monkeys. And I was like, where? Like, wow, what the heck? And just out of nowhere, like rats, like squirrels, like just tons of them coming and, getting their peanuts and then taking off. And it was so cool. And I was like, oh, that's so neat. I
had no idea that was down there.
Yeah, Florida's got a lot of cool places like the tropical gardens, the Wiki Waki place where you can watch the mermaids. You go down below and watch the mermaids swim through the glass, and Busch Gardens and Disney World and, Epcot Center and all those cool places. So.
Did you know that they actually pay people to go catch the pythons that are down in Florida?
Yes, I've been watching that show. It's the crocodile hunter guys.
Yes, yeah.
You get big bucks for catching those things.
Oh yeah, for sure. I see that's what I would be doing. I'd be like seeing if I could hook up with them and like try and catching them. Like I have a 10-foot boa constrictor. And a ball python. He's just a little baby right now. But I'd be down there. I'd be trying to find a way to smuggle them home though. So that would be my problem.
Yeah, you can't release them into the wild in Canada. They wouldn't last long, right?
No, it'd be like one winter, they're all done.
Yeah, in the summer they'd be okay, and then they'd all freeze to death. Come December.
We'd have all these reticulated pythons all over the roads, dead.
That's right.
It'd be new meat. It'd be like roadkill.
That's right. That's right.
So, talking about paranormal experiences, have you had any signs or symbols from the spirit world come to you, like things that have guided you in some way, shape, or form?
One thing that I see and have seen my whole life, and maybe Brandon has some insight into this, is I always see the number 111 all the time. And I've done some research on it, and I can't remember what it said, but there's different variations to the meaning of numbers 111, 222, 333. But when I was a teenager, I used to wake up in the middle of the night, and I'd look over my clock. It'd be 111.
Yeah,
all the time. And even in my adult life, I'm usually up till 1:30 because the world's gone crazy, and we're all sitting at home and languishing and trying to, keep ourselves occupied and everything else. But I'll pick up my phone and look at the time. It'll say 111, like in the afternoon, or I'll look at a map. Look at a map and it'll say Highway 111. That sort of thing.
So what 111 actually means is really watch your thoughts for one thing. It's a real sign from spirit to like pay attention to what it is that you're focusing on, because you're manifesting that. So it's a very manifesting number. And so if you're kind of in a negative place, you may see 111, or if you're in a positive place, and it's sort of saying, okay, you're aligning with your thoughts. So whether it's positive or negative, you got to either switch your thoughts, or that you're on the right path and you're following something.
That's absolutely it. Really, it's a big indicator of alignment, kind of plain and simple. Oneness. You're like kind of at one with the self, and the 3 ones, especially the number 3, is a powerful, strong number. And when you see 3 of them like that, it's kind of like that Father, Son, Spirit. All in alignment with the self, the physical body, the soul, and the emotions or the mind, kind of all being wrapped into one physical place. But like Kathy said, take note of whether it feels positive or negative, because you're in an alignment. That's all great and well and fine, but you have to know, okay, what's going on within me? Why do I feel, the need to check in, or why do I feel like, this is kind of showing itself to me? Do I need to remember to be at one, with my own self and my own higher beliefs or faiths, or am I in that moment right now? Either way, both beckon gratitude one way or the other.
Cool. Or maybe I'll live to be 111.
Hey,
there you go.
That'd be pretty awesome too.
me and my iron lung. I'll be hooked up to all these devices, and he's still going.
I don't know if I want to, and what the kids are dealing with nowadays and shit like that. To be honest, I'm kind of in that place of I think we got enough crap going on.
Yeah, no kidding.
So tell us, like, how? Okay, so you're also you have your own podcast, and you also have been. I don't know how regular you have been on Paranormal Survivor. Tell us about that a little bit. How did you get started in that?
I have been on the show Paranormal Survivor, and I think it's in the States as well. I think it's pretty popular. It's a Canadian program. Right. And but I think you can get it. I mean, it's on YouTube. They upload it on YouTube as well. So it's called Paranormal Survivor. I've been on there 2 or 3 times, and also I've been on a show called My Paranormal Nightmare.
Okay.
And that is another show. I think it's the same production company. And My Paranormal Nightmare usually starts from people like when they're very young, like growing up in a haunted home or an active home, and usually it's something that's malicious. It's not a good haunting, right?
Right.
So with the podcast, which is called The Phantom Faction, for I'll give myself a little shameless plug there, like I did the last time on your other show.
You plug away all you wish.
Yeah, but so I really got started in the paranormal kind of late in life. on your other program, I talked about growing up in a haunted house, and as a young kid from 3 till 14 years old, I put up with this malicious human spirit that was tormenting me, and we finally got it removed. But then I just kind of stepped away from it. There was no reason for me to have any real interest or anything in it. And then it was funny, I want to say about 5 years ago, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I was at a friend's house, and I got rid of my cable, my satellite, long time ago. Right. Just because, there's 900 channels and there's nothing on, right? Mm-hmm. So why pay so much money every month? So I got rid of it. If it's not on Netflix or YouTube, I'm not watching it, right? And I went over to a friend's house, and he's got like every cable package under the sun. And he said, I got to run out. I got to go pick something up. He said, plop yourself in front of the TV and entertain yourself. So I turned the TV on, and it was Ghost Adventures.
Okay, exactly.
I'd never heard of this show. Yeah, because I don't have cable, and I'm watching these. It was back when the Nick Groff was still on the show, so in its early years, and I'm watching these 3 knuckleheads, banging around in the dark and screaming at stuff, and poor Aaron there getting shoved in the basement and locked in the cellar for hours upon end. Yeah, and I was like, I would love to do this, and I had no idea that there was really paranormal teams. Mm-hmm. In my area, right? And I thought, this is so cool. I want to do this. So I got talking to my neighbor, because we have a home down the street that apparently is quite active, and like blood coming out of the floorboards kind of thing, right?
No way. Yeah. No way.
And I haven't knocked on the door yet, but maybe I will one day. Yeah. But it's a sweet old couple that live there, but whatever.
Maybe they're not so sweet, though.
Well, maybe. So I was talking to my neighbor, and I was talking about this Ghost Adventure show and paranormal stuff, and she says, "Oh, I have a girlfriend who is a paranormal investigator." I said, "Oh," I said, I thought she says, "Oh, she could be like Toronto or Vancouver or somewhere." I said, "Oh, where does she do her investigation?" She said, "Well, right here in town."
Right.
And I was like, "Whoa, well, that's cool." So she hooked me up with this girl. Her name is Michelle, and I got to be part of their team. It's called SHIP, Strange Happenings Investigators of the Paranormal, and there's about half a dozen of us, and started doing investigations with them. And at the same time, I want to say, I wouldn't know how I would classify myself, but my clairvoyancy or mediumship or whatever started to open up, and I've always seen spirits, even between the time I was a kid and now. Mm-hmm. I've seen animals like ghost cats at people's homes.
Wow.
I've seen full-bodied apparitions in buildings and hospitals and other places, and I just kind of kept it to myself because it didn't happen too often. Uh-huh. But then once I started doing the investigation and opening up, I started getting spirits coming to me. Yeah. And I was seeing them and sensing them. And even if I didn't see them there, I could see like maybe the outline of them, mm-hmm. without any details. And I started getting messages that, and I was like, this can't be happening. Like I'm not a psychic. I'm not a medium. I don't have any of this woo-woo, right, going on. And, but apparently I did. Mm-hmm. And then it just snowballed from there. In the past 5 years, I've had so many things happen to me. If I sat here and, we talked for hours, but if I sat here and told you all the crazy things that's happened to me in the past 5 years, you'd probably think, oh, you're making that up. Because there's been so much of it. And it just accumulated so quick, like an avalanche of paranormal, oddities. I've seen a UFO. I've had interactions with Bigfoot. I've been punched in the face by a spirit. I've been attacked by a poltergeist. But I've also gone looking for it as well.
That's exactly what I was thinking here.
Yeah. So if you go looking for it and putting yourself in harm's way, so to speak, mm-hmm. It's like if I walk through the most dangerous neighborhood in whatever city, looking for trouble, you're going to find it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I love it. I mean, I've been attacked by a poltergeist. I've been punched in the face by a spirit. I've been psychically attacked. Catherine, I told you about that last time, and
I feel like we all have this past year.
Yeah. And I've had so many cool things happen. I think they're cool. Like they don't scare me. Like when I got punched in the face by the spirit, I was like doing cartwheels. I was like, oh, that was so cool. That was amazing. And everybody else would be running for the real estate agent to put the for sale sign up on their house. But I was like, I was good. I was good with it. I loved it. So, and here I am. I'm getting on, shows like yours and other programs.
So, Dan, you bring up something really interesting that I hadn't fully considered before. I came into my, I guess, gifts or abilities or what have you. For me, it was through proof and science and studying science and quantum physics that I started to recognize different realms that I was accessing. And I think exposure is definitely a part of that. And now, as I'm hearing your story, it was like you were being put into these situations, and the more you did, the more you're kind of forced to exercise these different levels of conscious awareness. And as you did, then you start to sense these spirits in a way. You sense if something's around you. Do you ever get like sort of that clairvoyant, like you were saying, clairvoyance images like presented or thrown into you in some way whenever you're investigating, and have these abilities like increased every time you do this?
I don't know if they have increased. I almost think that they've decreased a little bit, but that could just be because we're not doing a lot because of COVID these days
now, right?
And that sort of thing. But I don't know. Like there have been instances where stuff has just been coming to me like crazy, and I don't know why. It's not like I flipped a switch. It's not like I opened myself up to spirit. But I'm getting all these images, this information, everything else, but I don't know how to turn it on, and I don't know how to turn it off. Like I'm not there yet.
Right.
I'll give you an example. There was a couple in town here who were renovating their home, and they kept getting some uncomfortable feeling because of the renovations. And you've all heard that renovations can stir up spiritual activity, but it was a fairly new home. It's not even 20 years old. It's like a subdivision cookie cutter home, and all of that, like they completely gutted their first floor. Like when I walked in, like the walls were bare. There wasn't even like drywall on. Everything was exposed. They're sitting on lawn chairs because all their furniture was in storage or in the basement and everything else. But they kept getting this really uneasy feeling and seeing something out of the corner of their eye in the basement. So my friend Michelle from the paranormal group said, "Can you come with me to this house?" Because it was her friend's house, and see what you can pick up. I'm like, okay, whatever. And I didn't expect to get anything, right? Because that's not my world yet. So when I went to this home, I went into the basement, and they had so much stuff packed down there because they were renovating and everything else that you had to like weave your way through these boxes and Rubbermaid totes and everything else. And I could sense something down there, and I'm really good at getting names of spirits for some reason. So I walked to the top of the stairs, and I said to the lady who owned the house, her name was Jackie, and I said, "Who's Ron?" And she says, "I don't know." I said, "Do you have a Ron connected to you?" She's like, "No." I'm like, okay, I guess I got the name wrong. So I went back downstairs, and still trying to get a vibe for things. And I went back up the stairs again, and as soon as I hit the top stair, she goes, "Oh my God, I know who Ron is." And I said, "Who's Ron?" She says, "Ron is this guy who passed away, and I've got a lot of his stuff in the basement." So it was her friend's husband.
Wow.
And he had passed away. And as soon as she said that, all this information started coming to me. I said, did he work with his hands? She's like, "Yeah." I said, "Machine operator?" She's like, "Yeah." I said, tool and die operator?" She's like, "Yeah." I said, is he a thin guy, about 6 feet tall, a gray beard, gray wavy hair, kind of looks like Kenny Rogers, but thinner. She's like, yeah. And she's freaking out. And my friend Michelle's looking at me. She's like, how are you getting all this stuff? And I said, and she says, oh my God. She says, I've got all this tool and die stuff in the basement.
Mm-hmm.
So he was upset that they were gutting their home.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And all of his stuff was in the basement in these bins, because his wife was like, what am I going to do with all this stuff that my husband had? So Jackie was like, oh, I'll take it. Right. And it was like some personal things too. Like he had like an antique washboard down there that belonged to his mother or his grandmother.
Yeah.
So, and it was buried under tons of other stuff. Right. So he was a little unhappy that it was being kind of disrespected or mistreated.
Yeah.
And I said, and I was talking to him, and I said, listen, Ron, it's renovation time. It'll all be taken care of. It'll come back and it'll get the respect that it deserves and everything else. I said, go hang out with your wife. Like, go be a spirit in your own home, not here, and leave Jackie and everybody else alone. And they're all looking at me like, holy cow, how did you get all this information? I said, I have no idea. So it just came to me and I just kept boom, boom, boom.
How you described seeing him is very similar to what I get when I'm tapping into those that have passed over it. It almost starts for me as like, you might just get little hits here and there. It's like a name will show up or something important, like maybe, something that may mean nothing to you, but it may mean something to the client or to the home or what. And then all of a sudden, everything just starts forming into a picture. I don't know if that's how you saw it, but like it's like it kind of starts off as one thing and then it develops. It's like it just glows from there.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little different. I think it's different for everybody, right?
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like when I got the name, it's not like it's a spoken word in my head. It's just the name is there. Boom.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then all the rest of the information. It's just like he's transporting it to my head, but it's not his voice or anything. It's just the thought, right? It's just, I don't know. It's hard to explain. But when it does happen, I love it. It's great. But there's times where I don't know. I still have to figure out how to make this stuff work. And
well, there are definitely different levels, I think, that everybody kind of partakes with it. And I think what it also depends on are those that you are working to connect with. For example, if I'm giving a psychic reading to somebody who's very, very closed off, it's going to take me a while to dig and to allow their own energy to open. And that's why I offer validation. So like, hey, this is the very first thing I pick up on from you. And then all of a sudden there's like more of an opening. And so if the opposite, if I have a client who is very open themselves, then I can feel that right away. Mm-hmm. There's a lot that I'm able to pick up on like immediately, and it can kind of hit like a wave. So I would imagine that there are different entities or spirits who operate similarly. Sometimes it might hit you like a wave or a punch in the face, whereas others, it might be just a little corner of the eye or something of that nature. So I'm wondering if there are varying degrees of, I guess, consciousness of an entity. Is that even a thing? Their consciousness, maybe?
I don't know. That's a deep subject right there. that's a heavy topic to tackle.
I would think to some degree that there would be, though. And I think it may depend. Like, and you probably know, as Dan is a investigator, there are certain elements that are in the earth, like limestone, for instance, water. They can really hold on to energy. Like it's like the Stanley Hotel. A lot of people talk about the Stanley Hotel, that was in The Shining. Yep. And, that hotel itself, there's still incidents that go on within that hotel. But what people don't realize is that it's not like The Shining with, red rum, but it is built on limestone.
Well, in the town that I live in and the town next to me, which is like literally 2 minutes down the road, our town is one of the most haunted towns in Canada or in Ontario.
Okay.
And
wow.
Every original building is built out of limestone.
Right.
And we have this huge river that goes right through the two towns. So you've got the limestone, you've got the water, like lots of energy, right? Lots of good vibrations or bad vibrations or whatever to harness all the spiritual energy. So yeah.
So
and
what limestone?
It retains. It's like it retains memory.
Is it more like a battery or a conductor?
It's like a both, I think.
Yeah.
Kind of both. Okay.
Yeah. It stores psychic energy somehow, right?
So like in the Stanley Hotel, for instance, if you walk into one of the ballrooms, there are people that have seen, the people dancing. And it might only be for a second, though. It's like a quick, flash, and they're probably like, what the hell just happened? Right. But with limestone, it's usually unintelligent hauntings. It's not usually an intelligent haunting that will interact with you.
It's residual.
It's a residual energy, right? So it holds on to especially repeated patterns. So something like a ballroom where people are dancing all the time, it will replay that, kind of like a tape recorder or a video camera.
That makes me think of immediately my mind is going to like, okay, let's create this building where you can do all these little different conductors. We'll put some limestone there and copper in the center and like all different things. But now that I think about it, we've probably done that many civilizations ago, with these pyramids and all these, big totems. They probably made them specifically to contain or bring forward some kind of spirit or entity because they used to work with them a lot more than I think we do now even.
Oh, sure. Look at Stonehenge, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't know what those huge rocks are made out of, but they probably contain some energy too, right? If there's iron in them, or some veins of limestone, or something as well. So
so interesting.
One of our viewers is saying scientists are barely finding this out. Like they're just starting to find all this out. They call it trace DNA. So they're just starting to investigate into all of this now. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, science seems to be a little behind. I mean, they're just now figuring out that the gut is a brain, and everybody who's done anything metaphysical or paranormal knows to follow gut instincts.
Well, and the importance of the pineal gland too, right? So, like a lot of people don't even know they have one, or like this little almond-shaped organ inside your brain.
Yeah,
because when I bring it up, people are like, the what? The pineal what? I said, yeah, that little tiny little organ inside your brain. They're like, what? So, I said the one you need to decalcify to, get your psychic energy going, and they just look at you like you're a weirdo, but whatever.
What's interesting? Speaking of the pineal gland, so my son has a pineal cyst on the pineal gland, and it's non-malignant, and there's a lot of men that actually have it, and women too, but they usually don't discover it unless you've had an MRI. So you could go your whole life and you won't even know that you have it, unless for whatever reason you need to get your head scanned. And it's interesting because now I'm beginning to wonder. I wonder how many people out there that are very sensitive or psychic or whatever that actually do have, some sort of, I guess, addition to their pineal gland, right? Like that cyst. And my son is highly intuitive, like very, very highly intuitive. And you got to kind of wonder if maybe that's, something that they should look into or start exploring, right?
Yeah, apparently there are ways to decalcify it as well and open up a bit more. And so I would avoid those, psychic supplements you see on TV, but go with the more natural, organic way that you can do it at your health food store. And
exactly.
Yeah, apparently fluoride is really bad for your pineal gland.
Yeah. I don't even use fluoride toothpaste. I get a special one that's like a non-hydroxy or something like that. I can't remember, but I don't even use that fluoride toothpaste at all.
And meditation too, right?
Definitely. Anytime you access a higher level of consciousness, you are exercising that part of the brain. If you've read that book, DMT, the spirit molecule, or have any experience with those kinds of things, they talk about how when you use it, you kind of shake off and break up all those little parts because it's pumping that chemical through the brain, which, essentially goes through the body. That does help to elevate consciousness. So you're absolutely right. Anytime you can meditate or exercise a different level of consciousness, you're absolutely shaking off all that calcified gunk on there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do the two of you as mediums or psychics, do you meditate a lot?
All the time.
Okay.
I do not as much as I would like to. I do before I go to bed at night, more or less while I'm in the midst of falling asleep, I suppose. I do a lot of like lucid dreaming, things like that. I also have like ADHD. So for me to shut my brain off is really, really difficult. But I try I guess the best way that I can say it as far as meditation goes, it's more staying in the present than trying to go into too much of the head or the past. So for me, that's my form of meditation.
Right. Because I've been meditating like a lot lately, especially with the binaural beats.
Yes. Yes.
And,
it's beautiful.
But I can't meditate to save my life because I've always got something going on in my head, like an idea or a song or, so I have to figure out first how to quiet my brain and then, tune into the meditation.
It is tough. It can definitely be tough.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I really like the power of now. Like Eckhart Tolle, really. But you have, I mean, it seems so common to say that, but I would suggest that if you wanted to explore that, to read the book. I personally, I have listened to the audio and it's like 5 minutes in and my brain is off. I'm not staying present because he talks too slow for me. But watching him on YouTube again, it's too slow for my mind. So you probably would if you've got a very active mind, it's very hard to center yourself into him as a person. When you're reading his book, it makes more sense, because you can pretty much read at your own space, at your own pace, right? You can always go back if you need to reabsorb something. You can, but when I'm watching, it's just like, oh, look, the wall's purple. Oh, look, there's a fly. Oh, look, there's this. And I can't stay, centered.
But I think the more you do it, the easier it gets too, right? It's almost like a muscle memory thing too for your brain.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been studying the subconscious mind for over 16, 17 years now. And really, it sounds, Dan, like you might benefit from some kind of hypnosis because the whole point is to distract the conscious mind so you can kind of get right into the subconscious.
Well, it's funny you mention that because a friend of mine who is a very popular, really good psychic medium, she said, why don't you come up one day? Like she lives a couple hours away. She said, I'll hypnotize you.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, what's that going to do? And she says, well, I'm going to try to bring out some of your psychic gifts with this hypnosis. And I said, you can do that? She said, yes. So I went up to her place, and she lives right on the water, like Lake Huron, beautiful, gorgeous place, and had me lay down. And I've never been hypnotized before, and I always thought, you know what, there's no way this is, I can't be hypnotized. There's no way, right? My brain's too busy and everything else. Mm-hmm. So she had me going down this hallway of this really intricate, elegant hotel. Almost like the Stanley, but not as creepy. and she said, pick a door and go in. And I went in, and it was completely empty. It was all black, but there was a wardrobe sitting in the middle of the room, almost like it was like under a spotlight.
Right.
And she said, open it up, and whatever's in there will be one of your psychic tools.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, okay. And I opened this thing up, and there was a lantern. Like one of those old red oil lanterns. She says that'll be one of your psychic tools. I guess you turn the lantern on, turn up the flame, get the wick going, everything else. And she said there's a mirror beside the wardrobe. She says, look in the mirror and tell me what you see.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked and I saw this. It wasn't me, but it was a guy looking back at me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was maybe in my early 20s, or this guy was in his early 20s. He was wearing a football jacket, like the old, like a Grease style, the Letterman, whatever.
Yeah.
And blue jeans, a regular old shirt. He kind of looked like he was from the 50s or 60s.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't know what the meaning of this was, but then she brought me out of it. and there was some other stuff too. I've got it recorded. And she said, "So how long do you think you were under for?"
I love that question.
Yeah, and I was like, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 minutes. She says, "So you're out for over half an hour."
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "Holy cow, really?"
Mm-hmm.
And so with this person that I saw in the mirror, I almost got a sense that. So I did a past life regression.
Yeah.
And I ended up on this city street. You know, it looked like some generic city. Like it could have been Toronto, it could have been St. Louis, Cincinnati, whatever. But all the cars on the street were like these old T-Birds and like from the 50s or 60s.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of thought, so I was kind of looking at myself in the mirror. Like here's this young guy with the football jacket on and here's all these old, but for some reason, boom, it started to manifest in my mind when I was doing it. And then it just kind of, as soon as the cars started to form on the street, boom, I don't know, something happened. I got distracted. Someone made a noise, whatever. But I was like, oh, isn't that interesting? Right. And I love that era, the 50s and the 60s. Like I love, like, you know, wouldn't admit this to many people, but I love the movie Grease.
Yeah,
my dad was a greaser, and you know, when back in the day in Toronto, and they had the black leather jackets, and you know, they drove the big boats.
That's
and
awesome.
They put the Brill cream through their hair and everything else, and always combing it and stuff. And so I thought, well, that was me, you know, in the 50s or whatever. So you never know. I'll have to get a real past life regression done one day with someone, you know.
They're pretty cool.
Yeah,
very, very cool.
And then I did the Meet Your Spirit guides after CATHRYN and I had a reading.
Yeah,
and that was really cool as well, because she told me that one of my spirit guides was a female but covered in feathers. You weren't really getting, you know, you weren't really being specific. Mm-hmm. And then you told me to do this one certain Meet Your Spirit guides, and when I did it, I saw this owl. This huge white owl with these black tipped feathers. And I messaged you right away and I said, holy cow, I said, you were bang on. A female owl with, you know, this female covered in feathers. And I said it was an owl.
Yeah.
So I guess my mind is tuning in a little bit and it's getting better.
It sounds like it's actually tuning in a lot, to be honest. It really feels like as you keep going and I remember during the reading, I kept hearing, there's more to come. There's more to come. There's more to come. There's more to come. Like you are just at the beginning. And so, you know, and it is funny because I feel like that's still in play. Like there's so much more to come.
It does feel that way.
Yeah. And it was funny because even with that owl showing up, the owl is such a spiritual animal, especially in regards to awakening. Right.
And I have a tattoo. I have a tattoo of an owl on my arm.
There you go.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah. Because it just, you know, like the owl can guide you, right? The owl can be such a guide, but, you know, guiding you to different realms, but also just guiding you throughout life because of, you know, they're able to have that 360 dimensional view. Mm-hmm. Something to think about too, right? They have that ability to look around. They're not just seeing one, you know, tunnel vision.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they have extremely sensitive and zoned in eyes, you know, allowing them to see realms that we cannot, you know, as humans, we cannot. So Owl speaks of all of that kind of wisdom based on perception and observation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. When you I think, you know, I don't know if Ontario's planning on opening like Alberta is. I know we're planning, I think next weekend we're actually opening casinos and theaters and whatever. Are you going to
you?
I know. Well, yeah, I tell you, you know what? I bet you any money by fall we'll all be, you know, boarded up again or some crap like that. Not because of but
or we'll all have rioted and like burned the Parliament buildings down, and so yeah, or move to Texas and Florida where it's all
right,
so,
where they actually seem to have some common sense. But
yeah.
but are you going to go back into investigating? Are you going to be heading back out again? Do you think?
Oh yeah, for sure. I haven't really stopped.
Yeah.
So I mean, we're not doing indoor stuff because people are trying to be good,
right,
and social distance and all that garbage.
Yeah.
But we've been doing some abandoned homes because there's no, and outdoor investigations. We're doing one on June 12th or 13th, whatever the Saturday is, I believe.
Yeah.
And crazy active place. It's an old shipyard.
Oh, okay.
And it's on Lake Huron, Georgian Bay. I know that doesn't mean anything to you guys, but it's part of the Great Lakes, and crazy active. Like lots of energy. It's right on the water. It's right on the lake.
That'll be good.
Yeah. So, and this lady who was showing me these abandoned homes to investigate. She went up. She lives in this area. It's a town called Collingwood, and she was taking videos of the outdoor or the outside of the place at night, and she's getting all these EVPs on her video. She didn't even realize. So she sent me all these videos. Said, "Oh, look at this cool place," and I'm hearing all these female voices and male voices, and I'm like, "What are you guys talking about in the video?" She's like, "We're not talking." She says, "I was all by myself." I said,
Wow.
Did you listen to the video?" And she's like, "Well, no, I just recorded and sent it to you." I said, "Listen to it," and you hear like full sentences and everything.
What could you hear? Like what?
Oh, I'd have to pull them up, but it was like she was talking, and you could hear a male say something, and then a female said, "Oh, thank you very much."
Like almost a conversation with each other.
It was like a cordial, like a nice conversation, like these two spirits just hanging out. They're watching this girl videotape, and I said, "Go back and listen to the videos," and she was like, "Oh my God." And I said, "You captured all these EVPs and you didn't even know it." Wow. So we'll be going up there with her. It's about an hour and a half drive from here. Beautiful, beautiful place. And we're going to go up there and do some outdoor investigating and see what we pick up. And so yeah, I can't wait. So EVPs, you always capture something, right?
Yeah.
You always get something on your digital recorder.
Yeah.
So it's always like anybody who wants to be a paranormal investigator out there. You won't see a lot of stuff, but you hear a lot of stuff, especially when you play back the audio files. Yeah,
that is an experience I have yet to have, and I think I would be very interested because I've never seen any kind of apparition, ghosts, things like that. I've had images superimposed in my mind. I've connected with people and have had mediumship readings where people that have passed on have come to me in connection with a client, but never anything like really fully paranormal. No entity, no nothing. So I would be interested, I think.
You're not trying hard enough.
Well, I wasn't actively looking for it.
No, I know.
Maybe when I was like younger. But for me,
but you must have some paranormal teams in your area that you could probably go out with and
probably.
They probably love to have
they
probably love to have a medium with them, right?
Yeah.
I would imagine. I feel like
every good team should have a psychic medium,
right?
With them.
Well, now that I just got and passed my real estate exam, and I'm going to be going into a bunch of houses now, that's even something that they talk about in school. They talk about it in school. They're like, there are supposed hauntings. You have to disclose certain things. But they talk about that, and I was like, are they really talking about like what I think they're talking about, like hauntings, like ghosts? And they're like, yeah, and I'm like, wow, I'm really surprised to hear that, but.
Well, you've seen those real estate signs where they've got the little thing underneath that says "not haunted," right? So, it's the house looks creepy, but they've got the sign "not haunted."
That's funny.
Yeah, it's a bit of a joke. And some of the real estate agents around here, I know one lady. She has what's her sign say? No zombies or zombie free or something like that. So. She just puts it out as a joke and, gets a laugh out of it. So
it's actually funny. One of the houses that I used to own, we were talking about, this is back when I was married. It was like my second or third house or something like that. And we were out with friends And this is how I found out that one of my houses was haunted, because at the time I was too involved with kids and my own job and my own work. I'm not paying attention to anything like that. I'm just happy if the laundry gets done. I don't care who does it. It could be, I personally don't care who's doing it. But I remember we were sitting there talking with friends, and somebody was saying, yeah, you have to disclose if there was a haunting within the house. And I remember my husband, ex-husband, now, but he said, well, we can never do that. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? And he's like, oh God, haven't you seen the stuff that goes on in our house? And I'm like, no. No. And it wasn't until like years later when we moved, that another house that we were in, that was really like, that's where things really kicked up, and it was pretty crazy. And by then I was like, oh man, what is going on?
But I will say one thing, and this is something, a topic that comes up a lot. Like there's Facebook groups that I belong to, like Ontario's most haunted locations, that type of thing. And people say, oh, I'm going to Barrie, or I'm going to North Bay. Are there any haunted places that I could check out? And every day it's the same thing. And then I jumped on there and said, listen, I'd like to weigh in on, these people that are always asking for haunted locations to go to.
Right.
I said spirits are everywhere.
Yeah.
They're in every home, every business, every park, every inch of real estate from coast to coast. They are everywhere. You don't have to go to this quote unquote haunted location, and like I've seen, like I said earlier, like, go to a friend's house, I see the spirit of their cat running around the room, or I'll see grandma standing in the hallway, or, I was at Subway once getting a sandwich, and I see it, and there's a spirit standing at the till. And I was like, it was a brand new build, and it was a field before that. So it was like, they built a strip mall, and I'm looking and I'm going, the heck is this spirit doing in here? But maybe it was connected to someone working there, or maybe the guy was like, oh man, I wish I was alive so I could eat one of those subs, right? So you never know. Like I've been in pubs and restaurants and seen spirits and seen, I've been in office buildings and seen things, libraries. So just because you don't see them doesn't mean that they're not there. So anybody who's watching is like, oh yeah, they're there. Like if you want, you can open yourself up and connect with them.
Yeah.
Right. So I want to ask a question for the two of you. I'm going to be the interviewer now. When you started to develop your abilities, did either of you have a mentor or anybody who guided you, or did it just happen?
So for me personally, I did have the gift, but it wasn't where I wouldn't call it anything of where I am now. This was more, the kid stuff, I guess. For me, I would, especially if I was drunk and at a party, I'd be the one in the corner talking to nobody. But for me, I was having a true conversation, right? Or I was the person, like if I was to leave a party, I found this out years later. It was like, oh, just watch Kathy. If Kathy leaves the party, it's time to go. Because that means that there's going to be trouble coming. Like if she gets up and goes, that means she usually has a sense about there's going to be something happening.
Right, a fight, or the cops show up.
The cops will show up or whatever. So just follow her out the door. But it wasn't until later when I started with my own houses where we were getting a lot of paranormal experience. And, it was, and one of my houses was almost like those, like you would see on something like The Conjuring, where we're all living in one room, me and my daughters, at the time, because, if one has to go to the bathroom, we're all going to the bathroom. I remember there was one time where my daughter came out of the bedroom and she was pure white and shaking. And she's like, I think she was about 4 or 5 at the time. And she's like, there's somebody jumping on my bed. There's a little girl jumping on my bed. And she's pure white. That she's telling you the truth. This is not making something up. But, so that's where, I first started experiencing. But then later on, once my son was born and he was really experiencing things and becoming very, very scary, as far as some of the things that he was seeing, I started going into investigation. And so I did have a mentor throughout the paranormal investigation. And this one guy and his girlfriend, beautiful couple, they would take me to different places, and they knew the history of a lot of places. And I would go with them, and he would say, just, what do you get? What do you feel? What are you seeing? And, when I sort of hesitated on things, he'd go deeper, go deeper, go deeper, go deeper, and would push me to allowing myself to just sort of absorb, I guess, the land, or absorb what it is that I'm picking up. And so for me, that was my mentoring. And then the rest of it, I just sort of went on my own from that, is, I guess, probably the best way to explain it. And then just talking to people like you and some of our other guests, like every time I'm always learning something, I always have a connection in some way, and it'll be like, oh, you know what? That did happen to me, or I have done that, or I've done this, or I've done this, I've done this. But it helps you kind of connect on a deeper level rather than just ignoring, like we were talking about, signs or symbols or whatever from spirit, right? Because there's so many, it's so easy to just let things bypass. And then once you start hearing the experiences of other people, you're like, well, wait a minute. You and I were talking about lucid traveling at one time.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, that I kind of consider that an element of mentoring in some way as well. And Brandon and I talk about different things all the time, and it's that learning, and it's that acknowledging, like, hey, you're not alone in this. And and sometimes I hear something cool, and I'll be like, oh, I got to try that.
The best piece of advice I've received so far was, I need to listen.
Yes.
And whatever information comes first, listen to that. Because there have been times where I'll be talking to someone like Brandon, they'll say, who's Greg? And he'll say, I don't know any Greg, but I got the name Roger before that. And Roger was his grandfather or his dad or uncle that passed away. And I'm like, why didn't I say Roger? So I do that a lot.
Yeah.
And I've got to stop doing that because like this name will come up and they'll say, well, that can't be right.
Yeah.
It have to be something else. And then, you've gone on the total wrong direction. And then you panic, right? And you're trying to get the right information, and you look like an idiot. Right.
I've done that several times, where especially at the beginning, I would see or hear something, and I would let it slip, because I was like, well, that doesn't make any sense. So why would I talk about it? And then within seconds later, somebody else would say something that was totally related to what I had just picked up. Yeah. And you're like, well, why in the hell didn't I just say that? Or I'll hear the name, and then I'll say, look at is there a grandfather around you? Or because I feel it's a grandfather, I've heard the name, but I don't want to really say the name. So I'll be like, oh, I feel like this grandfather. Oh yeah, it's my grandfather. Blah blah blah. The same name that I've just received, but I didn't say it, and now I'm learning in that way.
and I think like for me, so. I met a lady. Well, I didn't meet her physically, but I talked to her on the phone, and she has amazing, incredible psychic medium abilities, like through the roof stuff.
Right.
Like Hollywood, type of stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm talking to her on the phone. She's describing my house as I'm talking to her. And she said, "Oh, your house is full of this, and like there's a lot of static." And she's, "Oh, you got this many spirit guides. You got this person with it." Just talking on the phone. And she says, and I told her that I'd like to develop my abilities a little bit more. And, she said, "Oh, but for you, it's all about ego, Dan. You just want to do it to fill your ego." And that kind of put me like on a downward spiral in a way. Right. But then I kind of thought about it, and I said, well, you know what? Like, she was a bit of a bitch. And then I thought, well, you know what? If I want to learn the guitar, that's for my ego, right? Yeah. Well, you want to feel better and learn an instrument. If I want to, like Brandon, get my real estate license, that's a bit of an ego thing too, right? Like, so why shouldn't that be, a part of an ego as well? And I don't think it's a bad thing, because the way things are going, you need a lot more people like us. to connect with spirit and all these weird awakenings that are going on around the world, and all this other crazy things as well. But
the thing about ego in this work is that it actually is a limiter.
Right. And I'm not looking to make I'm not looking to make this into a career.
Right.
But a cool party trick, right?
Right. Absolutely. But it's when you have ego is really all about individuality, right? Self-expression. I am, this one person, and there is healthy ego and there's unhealthy ego. But when you're doing this kind of work, you're essentially losing a sense of self because you become blended with whatever you're focusing on, or whatever layer of consciousness, whatever entity or environment, what have you. And you have to kind of shed and lose that layer of the self to be present and to be kind of in that exact same space or that realm. And then it is through, if you were to do it professionally, it is through bringing that information in, analyzing it or understanding it the way in which your consciousness does to make words and language, to connect to other people. And that's where ego comes in that process. But in accessing it, period, if you do have ego, you're going to be very, very limited as to what you can see. And arguably, I think a lot of other people would say that you can't see anything at all. I don't think that's fully true, but it is definitely a limiter when you do have ego, because you have to blend. You have to blend your energy.
And
I think there's a difference between having the ego to learn, though, which is different than having the ego of for attention.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not going to be running up and down the street saying, "Hey, stopping joggers on my street." Say, "Hey, can I connect with your dead grandpa?"
We'll call you the long Ontario medium.
Yeah. So, and let's get back to that other question about a mentoring.
Brandon.
Poor Brandon didn't get to.
When I had discovered that what I was doing was actually called psychic reading and things, I did not have a mentor at the time, but as soon as that discovery came, I had a really close friend who's a deep soul friend, and he had been experiencing a lot of these things earlier in his life. And so he was able, I would say a mentor of sorts, but not really, because we were good friends. He's my age, a year younger, and we were able to share in experiences and learn off of each other kind of what was going on. And he helped to deepen my vocab with it and my understanding of it. But as far as the development, it was mostly a relationship between me, Brandon, and then that part of myself that connected with that realm. It was we had to come into a relationship and learn how to work with each other and learn from each other. So, a good friend who kind of walked with me, but not a mentor per se.
Okay. Now, what would for someone like me who's trying to enhance his abilities, what other than the meditation, what kind of advice would the two of you give to someone?
To enhance your abilities.
Or just to open yourself up more to let spirit come in.
Did you want to go first, Brandon?
No, go ahead.
Okay. So one of the things I usually suggest to people, it's very similar to what we were already talking about, is going with that first thought, right? Going with that first thought that's coming through, because you already have those abilities within you. You've already, you've already gotten yourself to that place where you're already recognizing the fact that you have those abilities. I think a lot of people have to recognize what would you like to do with them? Okay. And this doesn't talk about, I don't mean it as far as employment goes, or anything like that, but are you more interested in pursuing the paranormal? Are you more interested in, is this going to be more for self-development? Because especially if people are heading into that paranormal realm, as you know, there's some crazy crap on that other side. And once you start really heading over that barrier, it's very hard to go back. It's very hard to go back as far as the spiritual awakening to begin with. But there are different realms. There are people that are very psychic and they can pick up energies, of individuals and what's going on, and maybe have some clairvoyant abilities. But when you take that step over onto the other side of not just mediumship, but allowing yourself to enter into that world of, we're not just stopping at talking to dead people, right? That's where it can really screw with your head. Right. I guess is the best way to say it.
Sure. Be careful what you wish for, right?
Right. And
you need to learn how to turn it off at times.
You need to ground. You need to be grounded. You need to be able to ground, and you need to be able to walk into, I think one of the biggest things is we always hear about, and I think it's one of my biggest pet peeves when it comes to the spiritual thing is empathic. The word empathic, because of the fact that, yes, there is, people that are very empathic, but that's also called intuition, right? But when we get those people that are like, I can't go shopping because there's too much energy in the mall. I am just like, because you're telling me that you're not a grounded person. You're not a grounded human being because you're allowing all of these energies to come through. And I feel like people like that, if you can't ground yourself, you should not be in this field as a psychic or a medium or as an intuitive or giving advice to somebody, because your advice is not coming from a grounded and stable environment, within yourself. This is coming from chaos within yourself. If you can't walk through a parade or a mall or whatever it is without feeling like you're jigging out because of everybody's energy, you have your individual work to do. And I think that that's one of the biggest things to really, that people need to, I guess, if you were to mentor somebody, it's like, check where you are on that grounded energy. Mm-hmm. It's same as, especially with paranormal, right? Like, I mean, if we were to walk, and you and I have both seen crazy stuff, in homes. And if you've got somebody who's like, like on that Ghost Hunters show where they're like, run, that guy ran through then what are you doing this? You have to have that recognition that, yes, I purposely am walking into this, but I have to be in a grounded and strong place within myself. Right. So I think that would be one of the biggest things is, for somebody to work on.
No, I have been told, and I want to say this before I forget it, because, my mind goes all over the place. I have been told by a couple of different, very well-respected psychic mediums that my job, quote unquote, is to move spirits. Right. Ones that are trapped, ones that haven't ascended, ones that haven't, moved into the light, so to speak. I went to a quick little story. I went to a group reading at a coffee shop, and there was maybe about 30 people there, and I'd never met this gentleman before. And his thing was like, I'll let spirit decide. Make a comment on Facebook, and if I like it, then you're invited, and he'll put your name down. So I got there early. I was probably one of the first ones there. And then, so I sat in the back, because mostly it's women too, right? You don't see too many men in the psychic world, the medium world, right? Sure. And it's very female dominated, which is fine. Whatever. And I was sitting in the back with, my back against the wall kind of thing. And this guy walks in, and he's probably a good 20 feet, 30 feet away from me. He's headed towards this little platform that they had, and he stops. And it was just like an owl, turned his head, looked right at me, and he goes, "You deal with the dead, just like I do." Mm-hmm. And I was like, and everybody turns and looks at me, and I was like, and he says, he said, "You see them, don't you?" And I said, "Yeah." He says, "And even when you don't see them, you can sense that they're there, don't you?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's singling me out in front of all these people. And he says, you come talk to me after we're done. And while he's doing these group readings in this coffee shop, I could see spirits waiting to speak to him.
Wow.
Right. And I'm like, and I'm looking, and people are like, "What are you looking at?" And I said, "Well, there's a man standing over here, and there's a woman standing over here." And he's looking at me, and he's kind of smirking because he knows I can see these things. Right? Yeah. And then afterwards he said, he said, your job is to move spirits.
Okay.
He says your thing is to call upon the gatekeepers of heaven and ask them to take these spirits with you. And I was like, okay, so, and I had someone else, another psychic medium, say, yeah, your job is to move spirits. And I was like, okay. And I have done it. That's another show. Because, I guess we're going to be running out of time soon. But that's not an ego thing. That's, you're helping people.
Yes.
Right. Whether it's physically or spiritual, you're still helping people. Exactly. And I mean,
absolutely.
I've been in law enforcement my entire professional career for 20 years, helping people. Right. And so that's my thing. I like to help people. I'm the first guy to, out of the car to run into a burning building, that kind of thing. So whether it's, like I said, whether it's physical or spiritual, that's who I am.
So you have that healer element within you.
I don't know if it's a healer. It's just, I don't know, just a Boy Scout. Right? A little bit of a Boy Scout. Like I just can't stand to see people need help. And people just stand there and watch. Like I said, I'm the first guy to get out of my chair and do the Heimlich on someone. Well, everybody else is standing there with their mouth wide open, right?
Before we ask Brandon about his, it's funny because I seem to have those moments that will be, I have to be somewhere. I'll just suddenly be like, I have to go here, I have to go there. And it'll just take over me, and I'll be like, okay, I got to go to Walmart, or I got to go here, or I got to take a drive, or I got to go to the store at this point, or I got to do, it just tells me. It's like I just a feeling. I don't know why. I have no idea why. I just got to go.
And my whole life, I've and my wife says this, and pardon my language, but she says you're a shit magnet. you know in those movies where or TV shows where every episode the guy walks in and someone's holding up the convenience store, or there's someone drowning. I'm always that guy that's like, oh my god, like, what the hell is this, a TV show I'm on? So I'm the guy pulling people out of the overturned car, or rescuing the drowning person, or stopping the guy from holding up the liquor store, that kind of thing. It finds me. Right. So
I'm the same way. It was be like, I'll get this inclination to go somewhere, do something. And sure enough, it turns into a situation where, there's the car next to you has a kid that's freezing in the front seat because the mom decided to leave them in the car and go shopping. And you can see the kid practically turning blue.
Yeah. Or summertime and they're melting in the back seat.
Or they're melting. Or, one time I was at Walmart, and one lady's little baby was choking, and she literally landed right beside me. She was like, she's running through the aisles. You can hear her screaming, and she stops right beside me. And I was just like, give me your kid. I'm just like, done, done. Like, it's literally right beside me. But I had that feeling, I got to go. Like, I got to go right now. There's a reason I got to go. I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to do it.
Maybe that's like one of our, one of our purposes, right?
Right. Exactly.
So I'd like you almost have to get like a study going and talk to other psychic mediums and say, are you the kind of person that walks into a place and sees someone choking on the floor, and or
that is not me. I can tell you that much. No. No. I do not run into those things.
What would be your best advice, Brandon? Same question that Dan had asked.
My best advice here is to work with the imagination. Imagine the imagination is like the roadway that gives you access into all these different realms. And the more that you become familiar with it, the more that you can start to see that it is a process of surrender and creation all at once. When you do connect to other realms or connect with people psychically, or spirits, entities, what have you. And a lot of people think they get a little bit confused. They're like, oh, am I just imagining this? Am I just like creating this in my brain? Or, you know, is this real? And there's a little bit of truth to both, because it is literally that gateway. Imagination is the gateway from the mind into perceiving these other higher frequency, either realms or dimensions, or look at however you want to quantify it. And that is why Kathy's advice is so incredibly important, is sometimes when people open up that imagination too much, they lose themselves in that realm, and it can be hard to get back if you are not grounded. So knowing yourself and becoming grounded really is an essential, important part. I went to one of my cousins, her work, she works at a nursing home, and she was in the dementia ward. And that was one of the most psychic places I've ever been, like ever. Everybody is picking up on all this intangible stimuli and they're speaking on it. But to others who don't have that perception, they look crazy and psychotic because they can't ground that back in reality anymore. They're starting to see all these things and they can't make it real. And so that's where you can kind of border if you go a little bit too extreme, or, you know, chemical, other things that kind of create.
That guy who told me that I was, you know, dealing with the dead.
Yeah.
He told me that, like, his father, who lives in England, has terrible dementia. But he said he can only connect with his father in spirit, but he's still alive. And they have full conversations. But when he sees him physically, he's, you know, unfortunately, he's not there.
Yeah.
So I thought, it's almost like he's astral projecting or remote viewing his dad's spirit, and it's waiting for the body to disconnect or shut down so he can be on his way. So that's I'm glad you kind of brought that up. That kind of reminded me of that. That's pretty cool.
It really is an important part in that creation, because I think even Albert Einstein quoted something about, you know, working with the imagination and why it's so important. And I love that little crossover between like science and spirituality, because there is a merge, you know, there is a very clear similarity, as much as people want to separate and say that, you know, they're totally different. Yes, they are respectively in their own different ways, but we're also tapping into the same sources, the same energy forces or fields. And we're even using the same words even too. Energy and force, you know, experience, it's a huge part. But that would be, I think, my biggest piece of advice. Also for those that might have a hard time. So the other thing, and, you know, this is full disclosure, I don't want anybody to go off and do something that they're not allowed to or legally allowed or supposed to do, but working with hallucinogens, if you are really, really stuck in your physical body or your brain, working with them really can be advantageous, and doing it with somebody who is I guess it's becoming more and more popular now, somebody who can professionally work with it. They really can offer a lot. They can help you kind of walk through these realms, because essentially what they're doing is they're bleeding and blending the subconscious with the conscious. And when that happens, that's when you're starting to access, you know, these other realms. Well,
that would probably get me in trouble.
Yeah, you gotta be careful.
I've never smoked a joint in my life. Never, you know, never done any mushrooms or DMT or anything else. Absinthe.
They can be good tools, but that's what they should be referred to. They are tools.
They should be left as the tool rather than somebody who's relying on them to receive their information. Because if you're relying on it, or if you have to only use that, you know, in order to access, you know, you're not truly allowing yourself to enter into that state that is needed for that, you know, spiritual move, I suppose, is the best way to say it.
Exactly. Well, apparently here in Canada, they're going to be legalizing mushrooms.
Oh,
good. So
there you go. We're going to have a lot of people coming to Canada.
a lot of happy, spaced out people up here. But
they're going to have a lot of interesting backyards. I could see.
It'll be like Oregon and Washington State.
Yeah, exactly.
So whatever. I say legalize all of it. Why not? Just creates more problems when it's, you know,
especially if it's natural. If it's natural, there should be no reason.
Yeah, everything in moderation too, right? Same as alcohol or
of course.
Cigarettes, right, Kathy?
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
yeah, I enjoy a cigar every once in a while. So
yeah. Cigarettes, alcohol, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I'm just no. I'm not a hallucinogenic type of person.
I love those realms. I always find that I'm guiding people through them all the time because I'm incredibly grounded, I think, in my body naturally, to the point where it can feel like being stuck or imprisoned. And so for me, these other realms they're just so incredibly natural. I retain that sober sense of self with me if I go anywhere else. And I think that's a really nice advantage to like the work that I do, is I can always be present. I can always be that grounding force for myself, but for other people too, help you keep in touch with reality. And that is part of what I want to do with my own resort, is having extreme programs like that for people that might need, shake out of the body, get out of this, because I've had a lot of clients who are stuck and sit in this broken record over and over and over again. You're just like, oh my God, you just need like a smack in the face or something to snap out of it. And that's essentially what I feel like a tool of hallucinogen it kind of is. It's like that smack in the face of like, hey, this is not all that there is with life. Like, you have no idea how divinely connected you are to everything, and you're still stuck on this little tiny little piece of something. You got to get out of it. So like I said, it's a good tool, but when used appropriately.
Yeah, crazy. So before we close down here, tell us, what was I guess, okay, I'm going to ask that typical question. On an investigation, what was probably the wildest thing that happened? Like investigating somebody else's home or something like that?
So probably the best investigation we've done, we got our best audio and best visual in the exact same location. And this is a place in Guelph, Ontario, which is not far from where I live. Guelph's a city it's a university town. It's maybe 130,000 people. It's a very, very old city as well. And downtown, they have what's called the governor's residence. And this is where they used to hang people back in the day.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And like in the 1800s and maybe early 1900s. And the jail used to be connected to this building as well. And now it's like government office buildings. They do property taxes in there and other bylaw and type of things. And apparently it's crazy haunted. And we have had reports that type of things.
Sorry, that was my phone.
Yeah, that's weird. Disembodied voice there, and like they have a hard time keeping cleaning staff, and because they'll see things and they'll run out of the building. They won't go up into the attic. They won't go into certain places of the governor's mansion because of the heebie-jeebies that they get and that sort of thing. So we did an investigation there, and I weaseled my way in there. I'm pretty good at schmoozing, people to get into their locations. And we were taking a break. So it's only 3 floors, and then there's a subfloor, I think, or a sub level where the jail was. But we were taking a break in the top floor, and it's almost like an attic-y type of feel. But there's offices in there, and there's like a big boardroom style table with chairs, and we're just taking a break. We're talking, and someone turned on, I think, a spirit box. And if you ever watched one of those paranormal shows, they make a god awful noise, right?
Yeah, it's that one that's
it goes, right? Yeah, the static, right. Mm-hmm. So out of the corner of the room, someone turned it on or turned it off. I can't even remember, but there was 5 or 6 of us there. And we had a chaperone, because it's a government building, right? Mm-hmm. So someone had to be there with us. And this lady was in her office, the door shut. Yeah. And we hear this voice, this man's voice, go, stop, whatever you're doing, stop that. And it was as clear as I just said it now. Wow. But it was a disembodied voice, and it came from the corner of the room just outside this lady's office.
Yeah.
And we all looked at each other like, what the hell was that?
Mm-hmm.
And I ran over to the corner of the room and I opened this girl's door and she's looking at me like her eyes are like as big as, she says, I heard that. And I said, and she was on her computer. And I said, were you watching like YouTube or were you doing? She says, no, I'm doing work. And so it was like the most powerful, loudest disembodied voice we've ever had.
Wow.
And we got, so there's another little attic above that area. And we had almost a full apparition of a face caught on one of our cameras.
Wow.
And it was almost like it was made out of light, like shimmering.
Yeah.
And it peeked out from behind a corner and looked at the camera and then deeked back. And yeah, very, very active building. And we've got these night vision cameras. And there was another, in the same location, this orb comes zooming into the room, comes right up to the camera, almost just like a puzzled look, like what the hell is this thing?
What's going on?
And then shoots off into a different location.
Wow.
And on the main floor, Danny, who was on the podcast, the other Danny, he and I went into an office, like it looked like the president's office or whoever was running the show.
Right.
And as soon as we crossed the threshold into his office, the temperature must have dropped 20 degrees. Like we could almost see our breath. So there was something did not want us in that room.
Yeah.
And then we could smell feces.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, oh, something does not want us in this office. So like it was frozen, and then we could smell the feces.
Wow.
So we're like, oh, we better get out of here. But that building, I'd love to get back in there again. But the evidence in there was incredible.
That's really crazy.
Yeah. So as far as investigations, that's probably the craziest place we've done.
Yeah.
Just because of the evidence we've gotten. But on a personal level, like I said, I've been attacked by poltergeist and punched in the face and all sorts of other stuff. So
that is just amazing. Dan, where can we like follow you or follow your work or follow what you do? So
we have the podcast, the Phantom Faction podcast, and we have an Instagram and Facebook page. So if anybody wants to check us out there, we're on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, Castbox, anywhere you can listen to a podcast, you'll find us. And that's about it.
Do you share some of these experiences with your listeners? And viewers?
Oh yeah, for sure. We're in our third year. We usually average about 3 to 4 shows a month.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we have good guests on like CATHRYN and we've had Patty Negri from Ghost Adventures on. We've had Rochelle Davis from Ghost Hunters. We've had the lady from the Stanley Hotel. So we're getting we're getting a lot of good guests, and now we're getting people like listeners who have crazy stories.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And they're warming up to us and saying, "Well, I've grew up in several haunted homes, and I've had this and that happen." So yeah, it's nice to get the real people in there, right? The normal folks, like the non-celebrity types.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's fun. We like I said, we're in our third year. We have no plans on stopping. So,
I believe that I did. I'm pretty sure I put the link in the description box. If I didn't, I will add it for your podcast. Yeah.
Cool.
And you guys were saying too, is that you guys get a lot of like EVPs coming through while you're doing the podcast. Is that right?
Oh yeah. We get, like I said, when we interviewed the lady from the Stanley Hotel, I got psychically attacked by whatever was.
That's right. Yeah.
Connected to her.
About that. 2
or 3 episodes before that, the co-host Rachel got attacked by one of our listeners. spirits, and she had to leave. She shut her camera off and her microphone off and everything. She had to leave.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we get EVPs all the time. We get growls sometimes. Depends on who we're talking to, right?
Mm-hmm. Was there any EVPs with my show?
I don't think so. No, I don't think so.
They like me. No.
Well, you've got all that good energy there, right?
Yeah. So, well, thanks. I hope so.
Your dream catchers and your crystals.
Yeah,
all the other good stuff.
Well, except last week, the things are falling off the shelves.
Oh,
yeah, we were doing a show last week with a lady, and that globe that I had here just rolled right off and landed on the. Missed my head, thankfully, but and I think when you and I were doing the show on I Want to Believe with Linda, I believe that my door closed or something. I remember jumping pretty.
I think we got a voice with Linda's show. A female voice.
Yeah.
I was watching it the other day, and I kind of got reminded because I went, "Oh," I said, "I heard something. I heard a female voice," and I think Linda had heard it as well.
Right. So, I think it was coming from your place. Was that right?
Yeah, it's probably my mom giving me shit for something.
Dan, it's been such a pleasure to have you on the. I'm actually just we're gonna end the broadcast, but if you can just stay on, don't click off right away. But thank you so much to everybody for watching. Make sure that you guys join us on Wednesday at 6:00 p.m. where Brandon and I do live readings. And again, make sure that you guys are watching the channel, subscribe to the channel. We have the weekly readings for this week are going to be published on Tuesday. And those are going to be for the 7th to the 14th. And also the daily message of the day from Spirit. Brandon, people can reach you at the Dream Teacher, correct?
TheDreamTeacher.com, yes.
Absolutely. And you guys can reach me at oracleintuitions.com or through Facebook at Oracle Intuitions or my Instagram page. Dan, thank you so much again for being a part of our show. It's been a pleasure.
Well, thank you for having me.
Okay.
So, there's no coincidences in life, right?
That's right.
Mm-hmm. So I was here for a reason. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Nice to meet you, Brandon.
You as well, Dan. Thank you.